is also on RPG Horror Stories, and it's titled Playing a Woman. I think I got the teeniest taste of real-world sexism.
Oh,
Okay, so
sounds
this is a
good. Let's
story.
do it.
This isn't really a horror story, but it's been on my mind and I want to put it somewhere. So I'm using an alt account for this. My friends don't read this sub, so I want it to be as safe as possible. I've been playing D&D on and off for 15 years now in multiple campaigns that got to level 20, but 3 years ago I did something new. I played a female character. We're a 5-person party, 3 men and 2 women IRL. In character, it's 3 women and 2 men because of me. As the years have gone by, I've started to notice little things here and there in how the NPCs treat me. I'm trying to play this character as a kind of take charge type person, but the NPCs tend to kind of brush me off when I feel like they shouldn't. I'm a powerful sorcerer with a kind of dark reputation, so I would expect they'd show me some respect, but often, well, they don't. And it feels like sometimes other PCs just get a little more recognition, a little more respect for reasons I can't quite put my finger on. I've brought it up to the DM a couple of times and he's always had a reason. Well, this NPC talked to you like that because of X, or when the barbarian in the group did X, that really earned the king's respect because of Y. It's like each individual instance had a reason that could be valid and no one instance is a big deal, but it's just that it kept happening. I've played with this DM before and never felt like this, so it was kind of baffling to me. Then some more time went by and I started noticing that the NPCs would talk like that to the other female characters too, and it was always the male characters who seemed to get the respect. And at first I was like, nah, that's crazy. The DM is an old friend of mine and I know he's not sexist or anything, but once I noticed it, I kept noticing it. And I didn't say anything because, come on, how whiny would it be for a straight white dude to complain about low-grade fantasy sexism? Honestly, sometimes I'd notice a little thing and be sure it was sexism, and then the next time I'd be sure I must be imagining it. Like, an NPC might talk to one of the male characters before us, or he might give them more respect than us. I mentioned to one of the other guys who I've been friends with since high school that I felt my character was getting shortchanged sometimes, not mentioning sexism as the cause, and he just kind of shrugged it off, so I let it drop. This Sunday, as everyone was leaving, I found myself alone in the parking lot with one of the real-life women of the group. Yet another NPC had low-level disrespected our characters in favor of one of the guys this game, and it was on my mind. I said something to her like, is it just me, or does Person A and Person B, the guys, though I didn't say that, get just a little more respect than we do? She just shrugged. It's a man's world, she said. We talked a little more because I wasn't sure if she was serious at first, but she was, and she didn't seem particularly upset or bent out of shape about it. As far as she was concerned, this is just how it goes. First, I felt immediately relieved, like I'm not crazy. It wasn't all in my head. Like I said earlier, I didn't bring up sexism to her. She brought it up first, and it felt great to have my perceptions validated. But I've really been dwelling on it since then. She was so matter-of-fact about it. It bothers me that this must happen all the time to women and I just don't notice it. I mean, obviously this is a really small sample size, the DM whose NPCs act that way and the other guy players who don't notice it, and obviously I don't really understand what a woman goes through. I don't want to pretend like my little thing here is on the same level as what real women experience every day. It's really her reaction that's stuck with me, the sort of welcome to the club vibe I got. Honestly, if this is normal for women, I don't know how they deal with it. I find it infuriating, and I only have to deal with it every now and then in a fantasy world. Edit. Wow, never got gold or silver on anything on my real account. Oh, so they must have gotten a reward for this post. Anyway, I just want to clarify my DM's intentions and demeanors since a few people didn't quite understand this part. He's not really a bad guy, and I know he'd never have his characters be sexist on purpose, and that's kind of the point of the story. Part of me held out on the this is sexism judgment for so long because I was like, I think he's a pretty progressive guy. I've known him for years. He'd never do that. This isn't really a horror story. It's not a constant thing. He doesn't beat down the women characters or constantly disrespect us. No one's character has been sexually assaulted. This isn't the clear-cut open sexism that some of the commenters are talking about. That's what makes it insidious. My takeaway, especially after reading the comments, is we guys need to do a better job of watching out for this from ourselves and our friends. thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, I love that. Um, my first thought is, this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. Not I don't have an RPG story about it, but it's things I noticed and things I saw both in myself and in other people, um, that made me uh made me question things the way this individual did in this post. The subtle things, especially like and I think he's right. The horrifying thing here is the is the response of, well, that's just sort of life, um
The
because
self-gaslighting.
the self get well, or the just, well, that's the way it is. There's no there's it just it is what it is, and I get that, and I again, I the only comparison I can make, because like this, like this poster said, I don't necessarily know what it is to experience sexism in that way. What I do know is from a neurodivergent perspective, what it feels like to be excluded because of how my brain works and because of my mannerisms, and to have to mask and to be something I'm not. So I get that angle of it, and that's how I sort of process it in terms of, in the best way I can, to make a false equivalency, but something that's maybe a little bit closer to an
Sure,
equivalency,
sure.
right? Um, I find myself, even as I work with clients who are neurodivergent, and it's kind of like, well, yeah, you got to kind of figure this out, like I get it, like this doesn't feel good, but what accommodations can you make, and at what point should you no longer? At what point is it unfair to have to make accommodations, for these sort of things, Um, and again, I doubt that I'm sure the DM probably doesn't view themselves as a sexist. They're probably a perfectly reasonable person, and they came up with reasons, why why their characters behave, the NPCs behave the way they did, and they all seemed very plausible. So it doesn't strike me that there's a genuine, like, misogyny that's in the DM,
Right.
like, based on my listening to that, and
Right.
the way
Not
the
a
player
conscious
described it.
intention of that.
Yeah, so of intentionally being sexist or intentionally hold, but I think it does highlight how society views women, and how it's trickled down into all of our thinking. And it's a call to me as a dungeon master to make sure I'm not doing that. Are there places? I don't think so. I mean, I know in the campaigns I've run, I don't believe I've ever run across that. But it's a reminder to me to always be on the watch for it. Um and then the question is how do you, what comes to my mind is how could there be a dialogue about this in a safe way where the DM, who by all accounts seems to be let's make the assumption the DM is a good guy, whatever that
Right.
means, and is not deliberately being, gaslighty and sexist, and is in fact a good guy who is just has the societal weight, the air pressure of society that has caused sort of this subtle, insidious, misogyny. Like, how do you have that conversation? I don't that's the other thing that I'm sort of popped up for me. Like, how do you keep it from being defensive? I don't know
Yeah.
what comes up, how does that land, and what comes up for you, Reese?
Yeah. No, I absolutely love everything you're saying. And I think it is so hard because, like you said, when he brought it up, it's like, well, he had all these reasons that it's like, that makes perfectly good sense. And in a quote unquote like good guy's mind, if we're presuming he is a good guy, um, you would have reasons for doing all of these things. And yet, just because you have reasons that don't on their face look sexist doesn't mean that subconsciously, like, why the one example that the OP uses is, well, the barbarian really earned the king's respect by doing this one thing. Okay, that is an explanation there. However, why doesn't the dark sorcery earn the respect from the king, whereas the brute strength of the barbarian does, right? Like, there's still subliminal messages that are being communicated there. Um, I think it's really hard to bring it up and it not get defensive, because we all have internalized misogyny, internalized racism, internalized homophobia. Like, it is impossible to escape our socialization without that being imbued somewhere in your subconscious. And I think that's really where the work of being not just a pro ally, but being, again, I'll refer to Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I think that the things that he talks about in that book are really so important across the board. How can I be an anti-homophobe? How can I be an anti-sexist? Not actively be sexist, but take active steps to do the opposite is really important. And I think when we confront these things, it's really important that we're not just confronting the internalized piece of it and like where that might have come from. Because I know one thing that I do for myself is like, oh, well, but I have that because of this experience I had when I was younger. The natural conclusion of that is, so it's not my fault. And I think sometimes it really is just having the confidence enough to say, you know, and maybe it is my fault. Maybe I did do a racist thing. Doesn't mean you're a racist, but maybe you did a racist thing or you had a racist assumption. And with this DM, I think it's absolutely understandable that they would jump to, oh, well, but this is why, because I'm not a sexist. I don't hate women. I think women deserve equality. But when someone brings that up to you in a casual, calm, low stakes way, that really is the opportunity for some inner reflection. Now, I'm not saying every single time someone brings up sexism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever to you, that they're always right. They may not be. But I do think that any time someone brings that up to you, you should do some reflecting. Because that's a big claim. And it's also vulnerable for someone else to bring that up to you. And I think it would take a lot for someone to say that to someone that they love and care about, to be like, hey, I am not trying to hurt you. I don't think you're a bad person, but this is a subtle pattern. Like, put yourself in that person's shoes to think like that would be a really hard thing to tell someone. It at least deserves some introspection and analysis of the self. And so I think my response with like, how do you have a conversation that doesn't jump to defensiveness? I think that is just like kind of the therapizing of it all, that is just like, take a breath and take 10 seconds before responding. Like if someone brings that up to you, just move into the observer as much as you can, as opposed to the receiver and like in that moment. And if you feel like you're not able to have a conversation right then and there with that person after bringing it up, you are absolutely always allowed to say, thank you for bringing this to me. I'm going to be honest, I'm feeling a lot of feelings come up right now, and I don't want to talk about this when I'm having those feelings. I'm going to think about it and we'll round back and I'll talk with you about it. Like, absolutely do that if you need to, but also do think about it. And even if you need to be a little defensive and rant in the car on the way home first and feel those feelings and like, how dare they? And I would never, I'm a good person. Like, feel the defensive feelings and then look behind them. And you don't have to do that work on display in front of everybody, but you do have to make right in front of everybody. And that's hard. It's hard to do. But I think the line from OP's writing that really sticks out to me is, this isn't the clear-cut open sexism that some of the commenters are talking about, but that's what makes it insidious.